Good afternoon, Albert Gallatin Area School District families, teachers, administration, faculty, staff, and students. As you know, these times have been very difficult, unprecedented, dealing with the COVID-19. As a result, our district's return to school health and safety plan has been revised by our pandemic team and approved by our school board as of last evening, July 22nd, 2020. Things may continue to change, but at this time I will have Mrs. Lara Bezak, the assistant to the superintendent, as well as our district's pandemic coordinator, give you some very important updates with the start of the school year for the 2020-21 school year. Mrs. Bezak.
Thank you, Mr. Pegg. Before I start, I do want to thank all of the parents, all of the members of the Albert Gallatin community for their cooperation thus far. Again, as Mr. Pegg had said, these times are unprecedented, and at the risk of avoiding giving you information that within 48 hours most likely would have changed, we have delayed in doing so. So I want to upfront say, as an administrator, on behalf of Mr. Pegg and I, who are both parents also, so we know the situation that you're all facing at this time. It's getting very close to the start of the school year, so we do want to upfront say, we apologize for this, but again, we wanted to wait until we had something at least confirmed to some extent that we could be able to give you some information now to base some future decision making on as parents that you'll have to make. What I want to start with is to clarify for everyone. At this time, the first day of school will be Monday, August 31st. However, based on the plan that we presented to the board, and then also presented a second time for some revisions, we have determined that the safest and most appropriate way to return to school would be to approach it in terms of a hybrid approach. So what that would mean is that although Fayette County is in the green stage or designated area, we will be returning to school keeping in mind that the goal is ultimately green, meaning all students come back together. We have opted to do this on a scaffolded, blended approach type of return. So what does that mean for you as a parent? That will mean that your buildings all will be divided between the letter L and M. Students in group A to L would be identified as group A. Students in groups M to Z would be identified as group B. The goal is that each week students would alternate their days of attendance, while on Wednesday teachers would be available for remote assistance with instruction, providing additional work if needed, and we as a district would be doing what they call a deep clean of the buildings midweek. I want to clarify to clear up any misconceptions. Please realize that the buildings will be deep cleaned every day, as obvious to our plan, but again, we would use that day to further do a midweek more extensive version of what we're doing every day. So what does that mean? That means on the first day of school, students in group A will attend school their regular hours all day. Group B would be home completing assignments or tasks from their home remotely. Followed by the next day, Group B students then would be able to report to school, while Group A students would remain home remotely. The goal here is to get as much one-on-one teacher time as possible. And the goal here was also to assure that we could maintain social distancing. And what I want to say is, as I mentioned on during Monday evening's work session, was that, again, the guidelines provided by the CDC were guidelines. And a lot of advice from state and federal advisors, as well as CDC, suggested that they're guidelines and that they are flexible. But again, as district administrators and as a district as a whole, we're still compelled to look at these guidelines while keeping in mind the authority to be flexible with them. I'd have to ask myself as a parent, as well as Mr. Pegg, flexible to the extent of being reckless was the question. So in speaking with the building principals, this was the rationale for approaching the opening of school in this manner, was that, and you'll agree with me, was that we spoke with the administrators and there was no way that we could safely have students in full class size capacity in a classroom and maintaining any semblance of social distancing. So therefore, the best route would be to take the buildings and divide them in half and have half of the students come each day of school. This plan, we anticipate, would last for approximately 4 weeks. So it would begin on August 31st, and the last day of the proposed plan would be September 25th, which is a Friday. And at that point, we would reevaluate where we are as far as the county and what the designation is, as far as keeping abreast of any upticks in corona positive cases, looking for any trends or patterns that we would see in our own building as well as the county. And at some point then, the decision would be made prior to that Friday to just determine on that following Monday, would we be able to go fully in the operational green mode, which would be all students returning to school. Again, that's a lot of decision making that needs to take place, but at this point we believe that this would be the best way to get especially our smaller children, kindergarten through grade 5, used to the procedures of coming into the building, used to the vision of seeing their teacher with masks on, used to the procedure of now I have to eat my lunch in the cafeteria, I have to eat either in the cafeteria or in my classroom. Just a whole plethora of procedures that we feel that, at least in respect to the elementary, that it is very important that we take advantage of these smaller group situations to practice these skills and safety measures. So that being said, if there are any issues with this plan, as in terms of being a parent, in terms of your insecurities about sending your children to school, we agree and we can appreciate them, and we are not going to argue those with you. Again, myself and Mr. Pegg truly have been fielding a lot of phone calls, and I do want to interject how appreciative we are over the way that all of you have approached it, your willingness to talk about it. And again, it's actually, if there is a positive side to all of this, it is the response, the positiveness of the communication that actually we are having. Although it may not seem at this point that there's been a lot of massive communication, the individual conversations that we've had with parents have been quite valuable and been very providing us a lot of insight into how to look at things. So again, I want to reiterate, your buildings will be cut in half. You right now could already determine what your last name is. If you are an A to L, you will be in group A. If your student is in M to Z, you will be in group B. On alternating days, you will attend school the full day. The entire district, though, will be closed for operation on Wednesday, but remote instruction will continue in terms of one-on-one with the teacher through the use of the learning platform and or the fact that all of the students will have a Chromebook to for their use. Again, in order to address still parents that are uncomfortable with this approach back to school, we do want to say that you do have an option. You actually have two options. One being, you can choose to homeschool your student. And I think it's an important time right here for me to make sure that everybody understands. a lot of parents and a lot of us get very comfortable saying homeschool cyber, but I do need you to understand that there's a distinct difference between homeschooling and cyber schooling. Homeschooling is a process that takes place in the home, and the parent or another designee becomes the teacher. Again, there's a whole set of legal requirements regarding that approach. If you are interested in that approach, you are to call the senior high office and place your name, give your name and contact information to Mr. Gary Searock. He is going to be specifically handling any homeschool inquiries. But I'd venture to guess that the majority of you, in talking about homeschool, actually may have meant cyber. And if you didn't, I apologize for making that generalization, but at this point, I'll describe cyber. Now for us, cyber will be the choice for parents that may say, hey, I'm okay with AG, I understand that you're doing the best that you can, or you could say, I'm mad at AG, they're not doing the best that they can. Whatever the reason may be, you may choose just not to want to participate in this AB thing. So then you will have the option of joining our cyber program, which again, if you were able to hear through some of the board minutes or meetings that have occurred, and I understand, I will put that up front, I understand that the sound was not very clear. So I'm just reiterating exactly what was said before. So going back to the cyber piece, if you are interested in the cyber program, that will be a program that will be offered by the Albert Gallatin District using the resources of a partnership that we will be forming with Seneca Valley School District. You will have no connection with Seneca Valley whatsoever. It is more or less an administrative managerial issue. So given that information, the children will be part of a cyber program that we, though, as the Albert Gallatin District, will be operating ourselves. It will be much different than the other platforms available for cyber school offered by some outside agencies or companies for that matter. So our cyber program will be based on an asynchronous approach, which means that the students will be given assignments and they will have the ability to complete the assignments on their own during a certain period of time with some specific requirements as determined by how the course is. The good thing about our cyber program is, although your child will log on and participate in the cyber program as provided by the platform that we will use, we are going to work to make sure that every student or small groups of students will have an AG teacher of record. And actually that's a non-negotiable. They will have to have an AG teacher of record. So we have been working with our teachers to come up with a plan of how that will look like and how that will be implemented. However, again, I assure you that the students will be able to do the work on their own, and it might look slightly different than AG's work, but again, it's a curriculum that is Pennsylvania core aligned, which is what our curriculum that we use in our school. There may be a few changes in the pacing. Again, but with the guidance of a teacher of record who is an Albert Gallatin teacher, we will hope to eliminate or alleviate maybe some of those little differences or nuances. So if that is something that interests you, I need you to keep in mind these names. If you are a high school student, currently a high school student or a student coming into 9th grade, your contact person for this will be Mrs. Anne Marie Koss. She is located at the Albert Gallatin High School, and she will be taking the phone calls with students that are currently high school or going to be a high school student this year. Students in the middle schools, grades 6 through 8. Mr. Hutchison will be the liaison for registering and getting you all set up with the cyber participation for this year. For the elementary students, obviously that will be me. I will be able to be the one that will be registering the kindergarten through 5th grade students that are choosing cyber as an option. If you have a child that's been identified already as being learning support, life skills, emotional support, whatever that may be, your liaison for the cyber program will be Mr. Jared Plisko. So again, we've delineated it to sort of siphon off and disaggregate some of the phone calls that we're getting. And I do appreciate the phone calls that I've been getting, and I know Mr. Pegg has been getting a lot of them, and I want to take this second right now to apologize if I haven't gotten back to you yet. And I'm hoping this little piece of information may help clarify some things. So again, if you are not interested or just feel like temporarily you need to have your child participate in the cyber program, then we encourage you to take advantage of it. I think it is a leap of faith. We've not done this type before, but I'm very confident in knowing that other districts have used them in the Allegheny County and in our local county have used this resource before. So I am confident in the service that will be provided. One thing I want to clarify, that in the conversations that I've been able to have, as well as Mr. Pegg has been able to have, I do want to make sure that you understand that just because you're in cyber, you now are in the Albert Gallatin cyber program. You will participate in everything that Albert Gallatin students do. You will have access to those activities, whatever they may look like during this pandemic or this, school reopening, whatever is available. Yes, you have every right to access those, including sports, band, extracurricular. So yes, you will have access to those activities. And I want to also say this. By no means at all do I have any right to keep you then from participating in it and then saying, hey, Mrs. Bezak, I don't think this is for us. I think we're okay. I think she misses school too much, or he misses school too much. I want to come back. You will be able to come back. One thing I want to say, and it might be it might be perceived as a personal bias. I would suggest maybe considering staying there for a 9-week period, at least for the transition and the carrying over of grading. However, again, that is your decision. That is a personal suggestion on my part, and it is whatever you all want to do or feel that you need to do. So again, the program is, again, run by AG teachers. They would be the teachers of record. They would be available to answer any questions that you might have referring or referencing any of the content that is presented to you. And those teachers would be entering the grades for your child into their report card. I also want to address that in the midst of our preliminary planning for returning to school on August 26th, that is a Wednesday. This is specific to our transition students, which would be our kindergarten, our 6th grade, and our 9th grade students. On Wednesday, August 26th, we are anticipating, and please bear with me because as the issues and the guidelines and whatever might be happening, this could possibly affect these dates, but for now we are anticipating August 26th as a step-up day. Now I apologize, but step-up day this year is obviously going to look slightly different than it has in years past, and again, I apologize for that, but your understanding about that is appreciated. But I don't want the students in those grade levels to enter a building, even if they're doing it in small groups, without having an opportunity to at least get some semblance of getting acquainted with the facility before they get there. So our kindergarten little ones and our 6th grade and 9th grade, you will have a version of a step-up day. That step-up day time will be from noon until 3, and your building principals will delineate what time your particular child will report. Because again, in keeping with how we're approaching this opening, we will be taking each kindergarten class and splitting them each 9th grade, 6th grade class, even on the step-up day. So you may find that your child comes to step-up day from noon to 1:15, and another student may have their step-up day with the same group of 6th grade or 9th grade from 1:30 to 3. So we are subdividing even our step-up day. Relative to our elementary students, your building principals, again, have been advised that I'm not going to try to make a dictate here about at the district level what we want the children to come to school with. I'm leaving that up to the building principals, who will confer with the classroom teachers and they will be assembling a classroom supply list. Again, your children this year will still need their clear book bags in accordance with that guideline. However, we are going to provide the students with a basic bin, which we also call in the elementary world a cubby. And the bin will be wide enough to keep their workbooks in and all of their supplies that they need. We just want every student in the elementary specifically to have their own little cubby with their daily utensils and their materials that they need for school. So we've already purchased those, and those are slowly coming in, and we will have those delivered to the school. So essentially, other than being advised of what's on the supply list, you'll be able to go ahead and purchase those items, and if you have to, put them in the book bag or just keep them in the Walmart bag till the students return to school, and then they can get in there and get underneath their assigned seat in their classroom and put their little things and arrange it as the way they want. So again, those will be posted on the building level sites by the principal, and however they do that will be up to them. But again, you can confer with your building administrator about those supply lists. And I know these things are important to the elementary parents. I do want to say that at this point we're going to try to do a different approach to communication. What you can expect now from this day forward is we will definitely use social media, and we will be putting, if there's any change or any updates that you need to be made aware of, our tech department will be putting an alert on Facebook, and we will also back that up with a call alert text or phone call that will also piggyback that social media posting. Because actually in our communication feedback that we got, some parents were fine with social media, but some don't have a Facebook account. So a lot of information we took for granted was, we got very comfortable using the social media, and again, we got complacent. And so therefore, the results from the communication piece made it very clear that there are a lot of people that don't use social media. So therefore, we will post that there's an alert that's available. We will be also sending a call alert that's going to say, I'm not certain what the message will say, but it'll probably say more likely, hey, there's been an update to the school opening plan or the school opening information. So where will you find this? You then will have to go to our typical Albert Gallatin, agasd.org website. You will look at the top, and you will see under parent, there'll be the word parent. You will simply click, and the top menu available under parent is just going to say school opening 2020. And in order of documents that I want to upload or that Mr. Pegg feels that he needs to upload, you'll continually find on a rolling basis. So the thing is to avoid you having to go ahead and just continually check that blindly, we will definitely make you aware if there is something new there. So that will help in the middle of a work day or in the middle of being home with 4 kids in the house. You'll get your little text alert, or you can get on social media and say, oh, there must be something new, let me see what it is. And it may not be relevant to you or your child, but again, it will be an update. We're going to do this for the time being because I'm actually excited about the fact that Mr. Bolin in our technology department is working in tandem with a couple of his community of people that he deals with technology, and we ultimately are going to have an Albert Gallatin app. A few years ago we did have an app, and actually social media wasn't where it was today, and it sort of just went by the wayside, but I think now more than ever it's important to bring it back. So I give kudos to Mr. Bolin. He's coming up with a very intricate app that I think is going to make this all much easier. But until then, I think that the important information that we've been giving definitely deserves to be somewhere beyond social media and housed in one central location under the auspice of the Albert Gallatin District. So again, we're not dismissing social media, and we need you out there. So anybody with social media, we appreciate the help that you get when I guess what you do is you forward, I don't have an account, but when you forward information or you make your friends or other people aware. So we definitely appreciate that. That does help us a lot. So again, when you get a notification, either looking at social media or on your phone, you'll know to go to the parent section. you'll scroll down and you will see school opening 2020. And again, we will be, first item on in that area will be the school reopening plan. I am working on just a summary of it. The last 4 pages are what are required by the state to have submitted or published on the district website. So those will be available for you to read. And then in case, I don't want anybody to feel like, oh man, I don't know what she was talking about. I still don't understand. I'm going to put this chart as a document, and it designates that all students that are in Group A are yellow, all students that are in Group B are green, and you'll be able to see actually visually then what days does that mean my student has to go to school. I'm not certain if I mentioned this or not, and I may have, and excuse me because I have so much in my head. I did want to say that A to L designation and that M to Z designation, I do have to acknowledge that ideally we'd like it to stay as what we call pure as possible. The A to L stay, the M to Z's. But again, we will make provisions for obviously families. If you live in a blended family where where a child might have a different last name than the step sibling, then certainly we will make provisions. That's an obvious, that's a no-brainer. We will make provisions for those kids and get them on the same day as attending school. Likewise, if there happens to be a huge issue with childcare or a huge issue with the fact that the way that your work schedule or that you're an essential worker and it has to be a certain way, we'll certainly make provisions. Now, of course, we don't want those requests to get out of hand. I know that this is hard. The kids haven't seen their friends since, some of them since March 13th. Again, but we're not going to make provisions for the sake of being with friends or anything like that. Truly, we're operating through a pandemic, so some of those kind of like extra things, they can't be a part of decision making right now. So we truly want to stick with what has to happen for parents for this plan to help them in getting it to help us make it work. So again, I do appreciate the fact that kids are going to want to be, but really look at it this way, it's temporary. Our goal is to get through this for about 4 weeks till we get these kids acclimated, and then hopefully, given that we've plateaued, I don't know if this year there's going to be any safe mode, but if we've plateaued, the goal is then to get them back with their friends. But at least this way they'll get to practice social distancing, they'll get used to being in groups, they'll get used to those masks. And again, given all this, it will give our administrators the time then to continue working with the custodial and the maintenance staff on the procedures about cleaning, and again, we'll be practicing that long before the students come. However, any glitches that need worked out, it's better certain things occur on a very small scale than if mass amounts of students are there and the principals have to deal with all of that in addition to everything else that will be on their plate. I'm not certain. I'm basically just speaking in terms of conversations that I've had with parents. I'm certain that I probably forgot something. I'm not certain if there will be a place for the parents to maybe ask additional questions. Do we have anything at that point? Please feel free to call myself at 724-564-7190. And I'm at extension 8134. Again, Mr. Pegg is at the same number, a different extension.
My extension is 8119. And we understand this is a lot, and it's new, and we certainly want to get our students back in the brick and mortar schools, and we are taking the safest approach possible and following the CDC guidelines, the Department of Health guidelines, to get our students back in school and doing it in a safe, responsible manner.
And I don't want to belabor this opportunity that we've had to make this visual or this video for you all. But again, we've talked a lot about instruction. We've talked a lot about what this return of school will look like, because I know that is a primary concern right now with parents. It is the end of July. It's the concern of everyone. It's the concern of the teachers, and and we still don't know. All of this planning could be all for naught in the event that something does happen or the governor makes a decision. So we're operating on good faith and trying to stay up with things as needed. I do want to address, though, and I think of through all of this, the most important thing are the safety measures going to take place in the building. I will take a second to address what will happen as far as coming to school and some of the procedures, the entering of school procedures. And Mr. Pegg, you'll be able to elaborate more on what was purchased. That's in your lane. I do want to say this, that again, this is almost like a whole separate video, but you know, we are asking in the plan that the primary means of monitoring health will have to begin at home. We are encouraging parents to listen to your child. If your child doesn't feel well, if your child is flushed, if your child feels like they're warm, we encourage you. I know that they're hard to come by at this point, but a thermometer would be your best weapon to make a judgment call as far as, you know, determining what your child's temperature is. However, you know, listen to your child, monitor their behaviors, make sure they're feeling okay. We anticipate that we're probably just going to adapt the checklist that's on the CDC guidelines right now. It lists 2 sections, 2 blocks of symptoms, and it simply says if you're having symptom A and from this block and symptom B, symptom from symptom B, then you most likely should be staying home. So again, overall, self-monitoring and the care of the child begins at home. The student will get on the bus or the parent will drop the child off, and we will do also then a double layer, a second layer of temperature checking as the student enters the building. I do want to say that in the event that a child does enter the building, and whatever the mechanism is that we have in place, predominantly most of them will show either whatever version it is, it typically will show the student being identified as some portion of red somewhere. So we do have in place that within that amount of time that child will be pulled and the child will be asked to go into the isolation room with the nurse. And then a second temperature check will be issued to make sure that there's some accuracy. Now we all know as moms that a fever can come from an abscessed tooth. A fever could come from, you know, an earache. A fever can come with a bad scratch on the arm that may have, you know, a child could have acquired a small localized infection. So there's various reasons why a child can get a fever. So what we will be required to do is the child will be sent home regarding, you know, the fact that the temperature has not declined. So again, we will be doing temperature checks, and what would we ask upon return? Well, there are guidelines, at least the ones that were sent out on July 16th, simply said that in the event that a fevered child is sent home, you know, at this point, they're looking at 24 hours of being fever-free without the use of any fever-reducing medication. If they can demonstrate that, and better yet, if they have a doctor's slip that says the fever was a non-COVID related fever, that would better substantiate than the child's return to school. Again, but what we're focusing on right now is that the primary care of the child has to begin at home. And again, that will help us out tremendously. And I know what you're all thinking. You're probably thinking, I'm not going to keep my child at home and then I'm going to get a letter regarding attendance. I assure you, and Mr. Pegg and I will work together, and we are looking about what the guidelines will be with the state.